Ah, karate. One move, one technique. Perfect, right? Because everyone fights this way. No, they don't. You really can't fight that way. Look, kata is great to teach you a concept. But in reality, you have to move more than your kata is. The biggest problem with kata is the footwork in it. Because you usually do one step, one step, one step. But it doesn't allow you adjustment for when things go awry. So in life, what I want to do is get the hell out of his way. Right? He punches at me and I stay here and we slug at each other. It's not ideal. There are times when he makes a short motion and I can take one step and do that, like a kata would, right? It's one short step and I can move. But that's because he made a really short step very close. If he runs at me harder, like I'm gonna have to take more steps. It's not a choice. You see this all the time online. Some master challenges an MMA guy gets his face punched in. And every freaking time he goes like this, he lines up, the MMA guy comes charging at him, he takes one step, goes back on his heels and gets obliterated. In life, you can't just take one step. Often when people come to you, what happens is people will come in and then they'll go to do a motion, he'll press on people, and then all of a sudden you'll feel you get rocked. And then they try to take one step and then they get knocked down. What has to happen is as you feel the pressure is you have to regain your feet. So as he pushes in, I have to regain, then I have to move. It is not enough to take one step. This is not one, then two. Depending on the size, depending on the speed, depending on the distance, things change all the time. So if he comes in much heavier, I might have to do this motion, but I have to take 2 or 3 steps. Because if I don't, his sheer mass is going to knock me down. He comes in again, right? I may take 1, 2, 3. See, it's always moving. The feet are continuing to go. Good martial artists, their feet never stop. One of the biggest flaws in all karate is just learning how to stop and stay while you do things instead of moving all the time. When you see heavier karate, like the full contact stuff, people don't do that because they know better, right? You got a guy slugging away at you. They're not standing or holding their ground. But so many styles practice, he punches and stops, and I do my one step and I do my 5 techniques from one step, which isn't realistic. Because you really don't know what he's going to do. He could punch, right? But all of a sudden he could come tackle me. And then all of a sudden I got to shift and get out of the way. Here comes another punch. Hey, look, I got to get those feet. All the time as he punches or moves, I got to move and evade and keep going, especially at my size. And then here's the hard part. If you practice your moves stationary and not on the movement, how do you use them in the movement when you have to? So when he comes at me, I have to move and hit. And as he comes again, I have to be in a position where I continue to hit on the move all the time. I'm not banging on kata. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. It's a guideline to teach you how to move properly and how to do. It's kind of a book for what is in your system, but it's theoretical knowledge, right? It's book knowledge. Book knowledge is not the same as practical knowledge. Kata is book knowledge. That's what it is. I learned the book, but in reality, things change and evolve. So you should do your katas, but then you should take all the moves that you do in your katas and add steps to them to make them more interesting. You should learn how to hit on the move when you do them. If you're going to do such a thing, you shouldn't just learn to stay there and do things like this. You have to expand your movement. The feet are so important in karate, and it's so neglected. Walking floors like this is great, but when you really start fighting and it starts moving, that's not going to be enough.